Hi, welcome back to Official John Hart. I'm John Hart, your host. All right, I'm back on the subject of repetitions, and there's a reason why. We've been examining the reasons why bodybuilders do the things that they do, and one of the things that has to do with a great amount of longevity as well as muscular development is the number of repetitions that you do in a given set. So what is it about that? Well, over the last 100 years, about 100 years, it's been sort of established that the repetition ranges for powerlifters can be anywhere in workouts from 3 to 5 repetitions, usually working in that range, occasionally, rarely going above that. And then for hypertrophy, bodybuilders, these are our boys now, increasing lean muscle mass and strength. The number, or the cited number these days in most studies, is going anywhere from 5 or 6 up to 30 repetitions, training to momentary muscular failure. If you do such a thing, you're going to instill hypertrophy, a message of hypertrophy and strength in your body. And this we like. This is what we want, okay? Above that, going 30 plus repetitions, you're sending a very strong endurance type signal to your body. You're now involving yourself in an endurance activity wherein the muscles are not being told you need to get bigger. They're kind of being told you need to be ready for endurance activity. That one we're going to push off to the side in this discussion because this is not what we're after. We're after more muscle and more strength. Okay? 6 to 30 reps. Let's just stick with that, okay? 5 is sort of the dividing line, and you're getting to a gray area of power training. Now, I'm going to use 2 examples on you today, and one of them you hear quite often, and especially in social media these days, that is Mike Mentzer. Mike was a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, a coach of mine. He trained me personally, one-on-one, for many years, off and on throughout the 1990s. And Mike himself, in his workouts, when he described his workouts to me, I became friends with him. We lived 5 houses away from each other. And I would spend quite a bit of time with him discussing, working out, training. Came up a lot, and his own workouts in particular. And the thing about him was he experimented a lot with pushing the boundaries of, the accepted norm, okay? So at the time, most bodybuilders in the 70s and 80s, when he was training and competing, they were training using repetitions in that 6 to 20 rep range. I like that a lot. It was established as the range at the time. It's only recently that scientists have kind of pushed that up to 30, but we'll stick with this, again, this discussion, a 6 to 20 range in this example of Mike Mentzer. He, however, admitted he was more of a lower rep range guy and got results doing that. And one of his techniques in particular he experimented with was called rest pause. And in rest pause, he hypothesized or theorized that you should be, that doing one maximum all-out repetition will stimulate all the muscle fibers. Maybe doing 2 or 3 near maximum repetitions could stimulate more growth when you follow that up with a 10-second break or a 15-second break, and then pick the same weight back up again and do another complete repetition. And then again, rest, pick it back up again, and maybe this time you're on now rep number 1, 2, 3. Number 4, you're now on rep number 5, and you may need some help from your training partner to complete the repetition. What I'm describing to you right now is rest pause, how Mike Mentzer did it. Okay? And he would look to total 6 repetitions, 6 to 8, really, in total. So in his mind, he called that entire extended set, wherein he may have to, after doing 5 rest pause reps, the way I just described, he may have to drop the weight by about 10, 15% just to be able to complete a rep, because even with his training partner, it would be too hard. So completing 6 to 8 total repetitions in that fashion, where you're doing a maximum effort and then rest 10 seconds. Initially doing 2 or 3 reps. So knocking out maybe 3, let's say. Where the third one, it's impossible to get number 4. And then resting 10, 15 seconds, doing another rep. 1 complete rep with the same weight. Resting 10 or 15 seconds, doing another complete repetition with that weight, with help. Resting 10, 15 seconds. Now we're on number 6 coming up. You may have to reduce the weight, or you have your partner helping you again a lot. In that case, you're now totaling 6 reps. Anything beyond that, he would go and reduce the weight by about 10, 15% and continue the set on. That was rest, pause, reps. What was he doing? He was using maximum weight and clustering a bunch of repetitions up against each other with no concern whatsoever for getting a pump, no concern whatsoever for, oh, I'm risking injury. Well, you know, he was in his 20s. He was in his mid-20s at that point in time. 26 years old. He retired at 28. So 26, 25 years old. At that point, you know, you feel like you're Superman and you can do things like this and experiment with things like that, okay? And then rest up and recover and come back another day. The risk of injury is ultra high, training like that. On the other hand, I'm going to use the example, and here it is. As a teenager, I had a great exposure to many pro bodybuilders. In one of my very first bodybuilding gyms that I belonged to was called Mr. America's Body Shop. It was owned by Steve Mihalik, a former IFBB pro bodybuilder. And it housed or had plenty of pro bodybuilders coming through there in the mid-'80s. I was there in 1985, and plenty of bodybuilders would come through there when they were in New York to work out, and pro bodybuilders at the time. This one case in particular, Albert Beckles, I'll call him the Ironman of bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding. Why is that? Well, apparently his first contest was in 1965, with his last one coming around 92, 93. And within that man competed, oh my gosh, had to be 100 times. It's a massive number of contests. In 1991 alone, he competed 13 times in 1 year. And those were not all clustered together, you know, one weekend after another or one day after the other. These things were spread out. He competed all year long, basically. And he even won a show in 1991, the Niagara Falls Pro Invitational. He became the oldest bodybuilder of all time. At that point in time, he was in his 61st year. He was born in 1930. So he's the Ironman of bodybuilding. Why do I mention him? Because as a teenager, I witnessed him working out at Mr. America's Body Shop in Farmingdale, New York, as a guest of Steve Mihalik. And he was doing 14 reps on everything. 14 reps. And going to breakfast with him at the diner across the turnpike, and all these guys, hearing him say that he did 14 reps on everything. On everything. That was his number. It's got to be 14 reps. Hearing him say that, boom, it made your mind go, whoa, that's a lot of reps. And he said he never trained to failure. I would beg to differ on that one a little bit. The form would be going at the end of his set, which technically he was approaching failure. I mean, way into his 80s even, when he was being interviewed by Rick Drayson on Rick's show, Rick's Corner, he said that he never trained to failure and would keep 1 or 2 reps in the tank. Again, I saw him doing simple things, tricep press downs. I saw him doing shoulder presses, where the form would go down. I mean, it was failure, technically. So he would do multiple sets, but 14 reps. That was his goal at all times. Sometimes landing around 12 or 13, but it was always 14 reps. That was his goal. So on the one hand, we had Mike Mentzer training 5 repetitions, and he admitted, even when it wasn't rest pause, he was always on the lower end of the scale. You know, in that 5 to 10 zone, 6 to 10 zone. And then we had Albert Beckles going all the way up to 14. That was his goal. And sometimes getting 16, sometimes getting 12 or 13, but still up in that zone. And I can tell you from personal experience that Mike did have a torn trap that was from bodybuilding, that he had an injured shoulder that was from bodybuilding. Those two things that did hamper his career to a degree when he was yet pretty early in his career, and it stuck with him his whole career. You could see pictures of him in his back double bicep. One of his traps kind of bunched up. And he had a torn trap. He had a shoulder that was injured. Obviously, they worked together, so there would be problems with the shoulder. And then Albert Beckles, on the other hand, he was fluid, flexible, mobile, and with increasing muscle mass, weighing somewhere around 225, 230 pounds in that zone at 5'8", at the 1985 Mr. Olympia, where he kind of peaked and took second place to Lee Haney. That was amazing. He actually ended up getting bigger than Mike Mentzer ever was, and they were both about the same height. But at a later stage in life as well, that's the amazing thing. So Mr. Ironman of Bodybuilding, Albert Beckles. So what can we learn from this? We can learn this, that it's in the repetitions. I've used examples in recent videos of Tom Platz. I've used examples now of Albert Beckles. It's in the repetitions. Tom Platz ended up having a torn muscle as well, but in his case, he would go well beyond failure, even with moderate weights, well beyond failure, with extended, I would contend, overextended ranges of motions. He tore his bicep doing a dumbbell fly, and his hand was practically below the bench when he tore it. Flat dumbbell flies. Tearing a bicep. Training chest that day, by the way. So Albert Beckles is my example of someone who didn't have torn muscles, didn't have major injuries, didn't have shortening of muscles. He looked great all the way into his 60s, competing, and huge, bigger than ever before. Around 58, 60 years old, he was peaking around 58, which is amazing. So he's our example. And those repetitions are actually bodybuilding. Getting in that 10, let's call it 10 repetitions in that zone. It's sort of like the happy midway between low, ultra heavy, high, a little bit too light. Albert Beckles liked 14 repetitions. I'm 60, I'll be 61 this year. And myself, I still like slightly lower repetitions in that 8 range. I rarely go below that. But as high as 20, 8 to 20 would be the zone I work within. And it's kept me healthy. I don't have torn muscle. I've never torn a muscle. And no injuries to speak of. Full range in all my joints. And so I encourage you to do the same, that in your bodybuilding, and this is bodybuilding we're talking about now, as having more lean muscle mass as we get older. This is important, okay? Not just the 20-year-olds that are watching this, 24-year-olds. I'm talking about the 44, the 64, all of y'all. When we're younger, it's about the aesthetics and the look. Obviously, we can all admit that. There's a little bit of ego involvement. As we get older, it becomes, again, you want to hold on to some of that youth and that muscle mass, great. But quickly it shifts from that little bit of vanity to having more muscle is better for you. It's better health-wise, structure-wise, pain-wise. It keeps your joints healthy and strong. So all of those things considered, do your repetitions. Notice I'm not even mentioning the number of sets because, y'all, whether it's 1 set, whether it's 3 sets, you still got to do some good repetitions to instill hypertrophy and strength. That's what it is today. All right, from my heart to you, John Hart. Listen, before you leave, off to my left, you're going to see a disc pop up next to my head. That is a subscribe button for my channel. Please give that thing a tap and let the YouTube algorithm know you want to see my new videos that pop up when they come up. Down below and off to your left, you're going to see that thumbs up button. Please give that thing a tap and let the YouTube algorithm know to light up and spread these videos. It lights me up too. I will see you in the next video.